So I am the Triple P coordinator with Bright Beginnings. We offer different group discussions such as tonight, and we also offer individualized services. So I'll talk about that a little bit later as something that is an opportunity for you all if you're in Cuyahoga County as well. Mary, I'm going to pick on you because you're on screen. Did my screen sharing work? Can you see my presentation? Mary, or Joan, maybe you can tell me. Yeah,
Yes.
okay, great. Awesome, thank you. So yeah, I am also a parent as well. I've actually adopted my two nieces, and so I have a lot of personal information on parenting kids with trauma and with severe self-regulation issues. And then before Triple P, I was also an early intervention coordinator. And so I was working with kids birth to 3 who had developmental delays. So I do often use the Triple P curriculum, which is a worldwide curriculum that's used across many countries. I do use it in conjunction with my personal and professional experience as well to really individualize services for the families that we're working with. So here we go, a dive into disobedience. So some common problem behaviors that we often run into that you're probably all experienced. So our kiddos that are ignoring our instructions, right? They are just completely zoned out, not listening to us, not showing even a blink of a response. Our defiant kids, our kids that are verbally refusing us out loud. No, I'm not going to do that. Go away. Leave me alone. Our kids that are constantly answering back, right? They have an answer for everything. And they always have to have that last word. Kidders that are doing the opposite of what we say. Go get your shoes on, they continue watching TV. Go clean up your blocks, they go and make a bigger mess. Running away when you're asking them to do something. So those kiddos are just fleeing the room as quickly as they can away from you. Or kiddos that are just complaining and whining about every little thing. Kiddos that are very demanding of things, and then those that are a little bit slower to respond. So maybe they're processing things a little bit slower than we realize. And so we have to adjust how we're giving instructions. And then the most common, those tantrums and those aggressive behaviors. So I wanted to list these out to make you all feel and know that we're all in the same boat together. You know, I always tell my families that I'm working with, nothing your child's going to do today is going to be the first time I've ever seen it or the last time I've ever seen it. It's okay, and it's okay to be honest and in the same space together. So common parenting traps. So this is another awareness piece for us. So we want to talk through, you know, what is going on in our homes and what's going on in our interactions with our kiddos that may be kind of provoking some of these behaviors. And so we see our first one is an accidental reward. So an example of this would be maybe, you know, you're asking your kiddo, you know, it's time to clean up, it's time to clean up, it's time to clean up. They're really not responding and engaging. And then you end up taking them for ice cream anyway, even though they didn't clean up their blocks. Okay, well, you just rewarded that poor behavior. You didn't set a consequence. You didn't set a response. You just gave in and took them for the ice cream anyway. An escalation trap. This is a really common one for a lot of family. This is one I fall into personally. So when our kiddos are escalating and we are escalating back with them. So maybe your daughter shouts at you and then you shout a little bit louder back. And we keep going. And everyone's getting louder and more escalated and more dysregulated. Ignoring our good behavior. So our curriculum talks a lot about praise, praise, praise. Praising the behavior that we want to see, ignoring the behavior we don't want to see. A common parenting trap is ignoring the good behavior. And so we want to make sure that we're bringing an awareness to ourselves. We want to praise the good behavior. Inconsistency, this is a big one. And I work with a lot of couples that I see this a lot where, you know, dad's on one page, mom's on another page, so they're not communicating. And so the kiddo's getting those inconsistent messages too. And then they're confused about the expectations. You know, why is daddy saying this and mommy saying this? And I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. Unrealistic expectations. So Are we meeting the kid where they are developmentally? Are we setting our expectations too high or too low? Where are we at with things? And then the way instructions are given. So are we shutting across two rooms and giving an instruction we expect them to follow? And we'll talk a little bit more about how we want to give instruction. But again, just a common trap that we all fall into. So I want you to reflect on this slide, maybe jot down a couple notes for yourself about where do you fall into these traps? What traps do you fall into? What resonates with you? So some prevention stuff. So before we get into the meat and beans of disobedience, let's talk about some prevention. So areas in the home that we can make safer. Are there, again, we go back to that developmentally appropriate piece. Are there areas in the home that really we could just be proofing so that we are avoiding these bad behaviors? Are you constantly yelling at your toddler for playing with the plugs behind your TV, but you really could put a blockade up? Um, are you leaving the remote out in the living room and your 7-year-old's getting into it every night and sneaking and watching TV? Okay, where does the remote need to go? What do we need to do? How can we be proactive in our parenting instead of reactive in our parenting? Then what activities can we make available? So another common issue we see is that kids are just bored, and so they're getting into these bad behaviors. They're making unsafe choices because they're not being engaged and stimulated appropriately at home. And so thinking about, inside the house, outside the house, or going on outings that are, available in the community or free in the community, how can we be engaging our kiddos so that we're avoiding some of those behaviors and some of those traps? And then again, back to what behaviors can we target and praise? Are the two boys sitting on the carpet sharing their Legos and we totally missed the opportunity to say, hey, good job, you're building together. I'm so proud of you. Or did, your 11-year-old clean up after herself after dinner? She put her dishes in the sink and you didn't even say a word about it? Maybe. So watching out for those opportunities is key. All right, so here is our instruction slide. So when we're giving instructions, these are some really key points that I encourage you all to really focus in on. So the first one being getting close to your child within really an arm's length of them. So again, we're not shouting across the room. We are not, we're creating that close distance so that we see we have them engaged with us. Then I want you to get on their eye level. So this is a big deal for two reasons. The first being we want to know that they're engaged and they're paying attention to us. The second, when I'm talking over you, down at you, that's really intimidating and really provoking. When I bring it down and I'm at your level and I'm meeting you where you are, it can be really powerful. And so we want to make sure that we're evening out that height difference and we're getting on their level. Often making sure we're getting their attention by saying their name, getting that eye contact when you can, when it's possible. We want to have our calm, collected, cool voice. Once the child senses that you're dysregulated, that you're amped up, that you're agitated, they're going to feed right back into that with you. And that's where that escalation trap is going to happen. We want to keep our calm voice. We want to tell our child exactly what we want them to do. So instead of no, 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 no jumping, no kicking, no this, no that, we want to give them the positive. I need you to put your feet on the floor. I need you to sit your bottom on the couch. I need you to have gentle hands with the dog. Those kind of things. Then we want to pause. So this goes back to that. How are they comprehending the instruction? Do they need that pause? Kiddos tend to have, a little bit slower of a response rate than adults. We're very, very fast paced. Kiddos need some time to process what we just said to them. So an instruction may look like this, and we're going to count to 5 in our head. So we're going to say, let's have gentle hands with the dog. 2, 3, 4. I want gentle hands with the dog if you need to give them that reminder. If they don't need that reminder and they did it, they started petting the dog gentle, then we're going to praise, praise, praise. Good job. I love the way you're petting him. If they didn't comply, then that's where we move to repeating the instruction if we need. Then we get into a little bit more serious of our responses to our kiddos. How are we going to back up these instructions, right? So we've given the opportunity, we've given the direction, we've repeated the direction. We're still not seeing them comply. We're still seeing, they're doing the opposite of what we're asking, or they're fleeing from the scene, whatever it might be from those common behaviors from that list. We need to rely on our logical consequences first. So you were hitting your brother with your Spider-Man. Spider-Man's taking a 5-minute break, a 5-minute timeout. Logical consequences, Spider-Man's removed. You and your brother were fighting over the bubbles and now they spilled everywhere. The bubbles are taking a 5-minute timeout. Things like that are really immediate responses. Another piece of this for the littles is just a simple redirection. You're being aggressive with the train cable, so we're going to shift over to the Legos, whatever it might be. So I want you to think of this as your first line of defense, that logical consequence. What can I do that makes the most sense right now? I know I was super impressed with my husband the other day. My little one was stealing gum from her sister's book bag. And so the logical consequence was she had to give her pack of gum to her sister because she was stealing hers. And so just thinking, on the ball thinking what you could do to support a logical consequence. Now, we don't always have this, right? We don't always have these logical consequences that we just pull out of our back pocket and it's lovely and awesome and it works. So then we have some backup alternatives. So the first one being quiet time, the second being timeout. And I want to get into a little bit what the difference is of the two. So I want you to view quiet time as a removal from the activity, but still near in the same area. Maybe. So we are throwing a tantrum about, I'm trying to think of my little one. You know what? Actually, this evening, she had a very rude mouth at dinner. And we gave her a few chances and it really wasn't resolving. And so she went from playing Barbies on the carpet to a quiet break on the chair that's still in the living room. So not fully removing her from the situation, but moving her to the cozy chair. Hey, you know what? I can see you're having a hard time listening. We're going to take a quiet break. Letting them know, how long is that quiet break going to be? My little one's 7, so we do about a 5-minute quiet time break. There's often that discussion of using their age as kind of your cue for how many minutes. I personally do have a child, like I mentioned, that's extremely dysregulated. And so we really are at the point where we're kind of just focusing in on when is she hitting that point where she really is truly calming down. We're not huge sticklers for the timer because we're trying to key into regulation. And that's what I want you all to remember is disobedience and discipline doesn't have to be focused on, I have to discipline my kid and this is a punishment, this is a consequence. It should and can be focused on how am I helping my child learn how to regulate themselves? How am I helping my child realize, okay, you're feeling a little bit out of control, you're not listening, you're using unkind words or unsafe hands. How can you calm your body? Can you go into your quiet time break and do some deep breathing? Can you play with a fidget? Can you squish a squishmallow? Can you punch a pillow? What kind of objects can be in your quiet space? And how can you regulate your body? Now, the alternative would be timeout. So we have our kiddos that every once in a while, they've escalated past the point of quiet time really being successful, and now we've shifted to a timeout. So for my daughter, this is when she has gone for hitting. And so we utilize timeout. And this is going to be a complete removal from the area or the space that you're in or the activity is in. And I usually try to help families find like a really muted area in their home. So we don't want anything in the area that they can throw at us, that they can break. We don't want to set them next to great grandma's vase that we are cherishing. We don't want to put them next to the scissors. Um, Even visual stimulation. So I had a mom doing timeout in a playroom and it was just full of toys and visuals. And I said it was too overstimulating. And so really picking kind of a muted backdrop where there's not objects for weapons, and that being your designated timeout area. We're going to let the kiddo know what they've done wrong and how long they're going to be in that space. So you're in timeout for hitting mom, and maybe now we are setting that timer for a few minutes. We want to avoid talking or engaging or looking at the child when they're in timeout. We're very much muted ourselves and we're very much remaining calm. So you notice I didn't say, you're in timeout, you were hitting me, go to timeout. I said, you are in timeout for hitting mom, and here's your timer. This is our biggest part of, well, there's a few big parts, but our biggest part is re-engaging and praising afterwards. So timeout has ended. Your child's calm, your child's regulated. Quiet time has ended. Your child is regulated and calm. You are going to re-engage them in that activity that they were doing or in with the family mix or whatever was happening before the timeout happened. And then as soon as you can, I want you to praise for good behavior. So I want you, as any little thing that you can pick up, I want you to praise, praise, praise. Good job. You ate your carrot. Whatever it might be. It could be the smallest little thing. We want to re-engage, praise, re-engage, praise. The one that I skipped here is about explaining the routine. So I wanted to kind of get through all the steps and then circle back to this. So quiet time and timeout should be discussed at a very neutral time. So your child's calm, you're calm, it's kind of quiet and chill in the home. Hey, we're going to talk about this new routine that we're going to have. And, if you're having a hard time listening to mommy or daddy, we might use quiet time. And what it's going to look like is you're going to sit on this chair and you're going to have your squish motor to squish and you're going to do your deep breaths and we're going to take a quiet break. Or, hey, I love this room I'm in at the library. It's very muted. So this is where we're going to sit for timeout. This is our timeout space if you're having trouble or you're being unsafe or whatever you're choosing to use for timeout. This is going to be that space where you're going to sit. We also have a visual timer, and I love timers. I'm a big proponent of timers. And so when you are using a timeout for quiet time or a timer for quiet time or timeout, having that visual timer in that space as well. My timer's been thrown across the room. It's okay. All right. Behavior charts. So this is a great positive that we can use for our kiddos, which I love. I see some questions stacking up in the chat. We will get to those at the end, I promise. So behavior charts. So we want to target part of your day, a routine they're struggling with, a specific behavior they're having a hard time with, and use our behavior chart. So what this might look like is right now my daughter's using it for the evening because bedtime was hard for her. She was having these fits of screaming. So it is you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to get jammies on. What else does she do? Oh, she needs to have kind hands and kind words because that's something she's struggling with. And then give kisses to everyone and go night night. So I picked like 5 things. For her, she's 7, 5 works. For a 2 or 3-year-old, I would pick 2 or 3 things. You're gonna brush your teeth, you're gonna put your jammies on, and you're gonna go night night. You know, you really have to gauge where they're at developmentally, how many tasks they can handle. I wouldn't want to give 10 things to a 3-year-old. We want to make it as simple as possible for them. We're going to use a stamp or a sticker, something special to show them on their behavior chart what they could earn as their special reward. So I have one right now. She has her 5 things that we talked about on there. She gets a little star every time she does them. And so really, realistically, in a night, she has the potential to earn 5 stars. And so I thought about, during the week, that could be like 35 stars. And so right now we set it at a lower number because we want her to be successful. So right now she has to earn 20 stars in whatever time frame she can. You always want to set the reward a little bit lower than perfection, right? We don't expect to be going from, hey, evening routine is chaos and a nightmare to, oh, perfect, I got all 5 of my stars every single day. We want to leave some room for error. we want to be really clear, what's the reward going to be? So when she gets her stars, she really, she loves frozen hot chocolate at Dunkin'. So she can either go to Dunkin' Donuts, she can go to the dollar store and pick a toy, or, oh, there's another one. Oh, she can get an ice cream with daddy. They have like their whole little ice cream spot. And so being really clear, like what the reward's going to be. And it doesn't have to be a treat. That just happens to be like the cost of gold for at my house right now. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be you get to pick the movie for movie night. You get to pick a game or a puzzle to play with mommy tonight. You get to, have your special bubbles at bath time. Like think about what's going to work for you and what motivates your child. And then be really clear about the consequences for breaking the rules. And so, is that a logical consequence? Is that a quiet break? Is that time out? And remembering to never use the stars or the stickers as a consequence. So we're never taking stars or stickers away. This is purely for rewarding them, not for taking away. Praise, praise, praise for doing a good job. Give the sticker or the stamp at the agreed time. So my daughter does it in the morning. She goes over it with me in the morning, what she did at bedtime the night before. So have your set time that you're going to visit that chart together and talk through. Oh, you got 3 stars last night, or whatever it might be. Be prepared to respond to that problem behavior, but again, do not take away those stickers or stars. When they've reached their goal, follow through on the reward, but you can also schedule it, right? Oh, she got her 20 stars on Thursday night, but we have soccer and we don't have time to go for ice cream. Fine, but make a deal with them, right? Like we're gonna get our ice cream Friday after dinner or Saturday after lunch, whatever, just so that they know you recognize they earned it. If they're not reaching that goal, do not give the reward, do not take away stickers, do not criticize, just keep praising and promoting for them to work towards that goal. And again, make sure you're at a reasonable goal. If your child's really struggling and they haven't gotten a reward in over a week, that tells me your goal's too high and you need to meet your child at a lower number. And then phasing out, that's where we make it harder to earn those stars. So maybe the first week it's 4, maybe the next week it's 5, the next week it's 6. Eventually, what you're going to see is the behavior is going to improve and you're not going to even need the chart anymore. Okay. So we used to have a chart for our morning routine and now we don't even use that anymore. She doesn't even talk about it. We're doing great. Continuing to praise and continuing to rely back on that level of not punishment, but response of logical consequences, quiet time, time out when you need. Okay. All right, so I see we're at like the half-hour mark, and I want to leave time for questions and answer time because I know you probably all have a lot of questions, and I would love to hear from you. Just a little note, like I mentioned at the beginning, we do offer primary care, and so primary care is kind of a medical term, but what it actually is 6 one-on-one sessions with either myself or one of our facilitators. We're all trained in the Triple P curriculum. And we take that curriculum and we take the the materials and things that we have and we really individualize it to meet the needs of your family. So we go 0 to 12. So I have a lot of families working on aggression and or routines like bedtime or mealtime, or I have some information on how to respond to a child struggling with ADHD, how to respond to a child struggling with their homework, how to respond to a child struggling with screen time limitations. I have a lot of couples I'm working with where we're trying to meet in the middle on how we're going to parent, different things like that. And so we are here to support you. If you want any kind of follow-up, that is an option with us. So I do want to open it up. I'm going to leave my screen up for a couple of minutes here, just so that you can jot down any information that you want. So my work cell is on here. My email is on here. The QR code is if you are like, I like what I heard and I need more of this. And I know right now I want primary care and I want sessions. You can scan the QR code. You can refer yourself as a family and you're set to go. So I see Joan came back. I'll turn it back to her, but I wanna, open this up. But I will leave this up for a couple minutes, Joan, if you're okay with that.
Right. And I just I don't know, Grace, I'm talking to my colleague, if if someone wants to ask a question and wants to be more anonymous, you can keep your screen off. And I don't know if there's a way for us to make others not visible, but you could put it in the chat and ask for help. I just wanted to reiterate a couple things that Amber said, maybe use slightly different phrasing to talk about it and give a little of my own story. But so when she talked about, I use the phrase catch them being good when we're talking about positive reinforcement, praising them when you can, um, especially when you have a child who's um, challenging you. Go ahead and um, you know, you can, oh, excuse me, sorry, I was admitting someone in the waiting room. Um, when they're having challenging behavior, what you want to really do is try to pay less attention to that negative behavior and phrase things positively, tell them what you want to do, and then catch them being good. And also often, Amber, you didn't cover this at all, but like I found active listening really helped sometimes with students. Like, so if they're having big feelings, acknowledging those big feelings and reflecting back what you think you might be going on or what you're hearing them telling you. You are really upset because you wanted to sit in that chair and someone else took it. That was hard for you, or it's hard to leave here and go to the next step.
Yeah,
Just trying to help them, giving them some of the words.
yeah, that's
um
a session that we often do with families one-on-one. It's just a whole session about, yeah, how big are your feelings in response to an issue? And when are you having small feelings and big feelings? And how do we respond to those things? It's a great conversation for starter for kids. Like they really respond to that visual and those big little words. So I like that you brought that up.
Yeah. And then, um, you know, again, with rewards, you might hear mixed things about rewards. But one thing I had to learn as a parent, because as a teacher, I was always we didn't do a lot of rewarding for the most part. We wanted to promote implicit motivation for children to behave. But as a parent, I learned when we were having a really hard time with my son's bedtime routine that we got a book by a guy named Dr. Kasdan, and most of his books are for people like Amber, like professionals in the field. But he wrote one for lay people and talked about rewards as a way of forming habits. So making that positive behavior, what you want to see, a habit, and that's why you're able to remove the reward eventually. Um, and then you're doing that positive reinforcement. So that's like the reward. Just being, oh, you're so grown up, you're so, you're managing this so well, oh, this is so great for our family. And then lastly, when it comes to screen time, I have some concerns as an early childhood educator about the screen time. Children need to interact with real objects, real people. Young children in particular, for optimal development, they really need to play. Play is so important, and just hands-on activity. So limit your screen time, and both quantity and quality wise. I recommend PBS Kids. You want children to see what you want them to be, and they model what they see. So sometimes there's some programs out there that are supposedly geared for children, but really don't have children's best interests at heart or their optimal development at heart. So the only screen time I really believe does that is PBS Kids. It's the only thing I trust. And some educational videos I used to get out of the library and things for my son, wanting to feed his interest and curiosity. So just if you're having some real issues, that might be playing a role. So now, um, and again, the prevention that Amber talked about, setting things up for success for you and your child um, in your routine and in your physical environment can just save so much trouble. And then you might not have to use timeouts very, like, hopefully they're a last resort and you don't really need to do it very often because you're going to be able to implement these other strategies. Okay, so Now, we are recording this, and as I had mentioned, if you were on earlier, we have recordings of lots of different programs on our website. My colleague put the links to those in our chat. They're at literacycooperative.org. We have we have a resource page. We have a healthy families page. We're going to just call that from now on family programs page. But you can turn to those. And we will be sharing the recording out with all of you who registered, and then with our Imagination Library family list. But if you have questions, you are welcome to either, Amber and Grace, how do you think we best do this? Do we have people raise a hand? Do we have people put something? Oh, well, we already have a couple things in the
Yeah, I
chat.
do see a couple in the chat that I would
Yeah,
love
so
to
let's let you,
address.
I'm going to be quiet and go off camera and mute and let you take care of those.
Yeah, so I'd love to address. I see there's a few like housekeeping ones, but then there's two specific behavior ones I would love to address. And so I see Marina, what is the best way to deal with screeching and screaming for reactions? I love this one. So a really common tip that I give to parents kind of right off the cuff is to lower your volume. So we want to even catch the kiddo off guard by maybe even coming to a whisper. Mommy doesn't like when you're yelling, or turning off your response to that child. Mom, I am not going to respond to you when you are yelling and screeching at me. When you're ready to talk, we can talk. And really just completely ignoring that screeching and screaming. I know that that sounds ridiculous because screeching and screaming is so dysregulating for us. I get it. I have a screamer. I think my neighbors are going to call the police on us once sometimes because she's being so loud. But she's also a child that struggles with regulation issues. And so she kind of needs to get that out of her system. We completely ignore. We leave her in her quiet space or her room to calm down and disengage. And when she's ready to talk, then we talk. The other piece I want to bring up on this is remembering to yourself when your child is that dysregulated, that they're at that level, they're screaming, they're screeching, they're punching, they're hitting, they are hearing very little of what you are saying to them. So remembering that they're probably taking in about 10% of our language at that point. So we want to circle back to things like we need to have a calm, quiet voice in our home when we're talking. Is something we want to do at a later point when everybody is calm and happy and we're just casually having some communication amongst each other. But my go-to tip is to respond very calmly. Don't let them see you sweat, as they say, and even try the whisper attempt to see if you can get them to engage back with you. If they're completely dysregulated, that's not working. Ignoring the behavior and allowing it to ride its course. The second one I see, how to deal with kids who don't comply to instructions or people of authority, mom, dad, teacher. Yes, absolutely. This is another very common one. So when our kiddos aren't complying to instructions, I view those kiddo, and I see, because you added the people of authority, I'm going to take this direction. I view these kiddos as really struggling the most with power struggles and control. So our kiddos that we see that often really aren't complying at all, are really challenging every authority figure at every turn. They really are wanting to engage in that power struggle. They want to engage in those control issues. So we want to let them feel in control wherever we possibly can. I was just talking to my mom the other day. I said she knew that there was going to be a fight after school about going to the park. And I said, you know what? I want you to decide two things that you want to do after school today. That's the choice that you're going to present to him when you pick him up, and he gets to choose. So we're kind of fooling them into feeling like, oh, I got to choose. Mom's letting me pick what we're doing. So, maybe she didn't feel like going to the park, but I said, okay, so are you going to offer him, he gets to play with his Play-Doh, which he doesn't get often, or he gets to go to the neighbor's house and hang out. And so she was prepared and ready to shift the power over to him. Again, with that one, don't ever offer something that you can't follow through on. So if you're giving them some power and choosing their outfit for the day and it's 30 degrees outside, do not offer those summer shorts. You're going to offer the gray fleece pants or the blue fleece pants, and they get to pick. So you have to be ready to follow through. Did you want to add something else, Joan?
I just want to reiterate, I was going to put down, I wrote my little notes of, these are my tips from, 14 years of teaching kindergarten and preschool, so, and Head Start. So offering two choices that are acceptable to you on a regular basis. So, and especially like, again, this is a preventative, if a child is, before you do a timeout, say a child is making some poor choices. They're using a block to hit someone or to bang on something. You say, you know what, you have two choices. You can stop, you can be safe with the blocks, play with them safely, or you can stop playing with, or the blocks won't be a choice anymore. You decide. You decide. Play safely or choose another activity. And but you can do that with so many different things. And in my classroom, I mean, it was very effective, giving them two choices acceptable to you.
Mhm.
Um, and then, um, you know, yeah, hopefully that will ward off many escalations, and the need for so many like breaks of, or little quiet times or timeouts. Like, um, I've pretty much almost never had to do timeouts in my classroom. I didn't do timeouts, like just, and often I didn't call them quiet. If you can't play nicely with other people, or if you can't be safe with your friends, you're going to have to take a little break and be on your own for a little while.
That
You'll have to
quiet
go
time.
yeah. And I didn't even label it a timeout. It's your choice. So you either find a way to be safe, is there a way we can help you? But you gotta, and again, the active listening. So now, if you guys have more.
Oh, there are more, Joan. I'm gonna keep
Oh, there
going if
they
you're
are.
okay with
Okay,
it.
good. And let me know
Just
if you need any
keep
help.
rolling.
Okay.
One parent is holding the child, the other comes in for a love or hug, and they push them away or say, "Go away." So there's two pieces that I want to kind of dive into here. The first one being, we do want to be respectful of a child voicing to us, like, "Hey, I don't want you touching me right now," right? Like, we want to be able to teach our kiddos that it's okay to speak up for their boundaries and things like that. The flip side of it is we need to work on that attachment piece for that parent that's getting pushed away. So, does that parent that's being pushed away in the moment, can they engage the child somewhere else in the daily routine? Can they carve out, you 10 minutes of their evening and do some one-on-one play, phone away, the other parent away, just really dedicated, focused play. Another big strategy I use with a lot of families is using allowing the child to feel completely in control of the play by just kind of hanging back and narrating. And I call it like their special playtime. So, not asking them what or why or telling them how to play or how to do it, but just casually kind of sitting back, letting them take charge of things, letting them pick the activity as long as they're being safe. So, what I would encourage would be that opposite parent, that parent that's getting pushed away, to carve out some time where they can really spend some special, unique time together with that child. How to
But could
deal.
they also, at that point, say, I see you really want to be one-on-one with, mommy or daddy right now. I love you. So, I'm just coming in to say I love you. When you feel ready to give me a hug,
I love
I'll be
that,
over
yeah.
here. I'm
Yeah.
ready. You
Yeah,
you let me know when you're ready.
that's a good point, modeling that appropriate language for them, because like, "get away" isn't the appropriate language, it's just, "I don't," I'm not ready for that hug right now." And so, yeah, I like that, Joan, using that language of letting them know, like, "Hey, I'm not ready right now, I wanna snuggle mommy right now, or I wanna snuggle daddy right now." That's a great idea. Um, how to deal with twins who copy negative behavior and feed off each other. Yes. This is not just a twin thing, Mara, but I feel your pain. Um, I want so this is a good opportunity, you could definitely hone in on the strengths of each child and then rewarding each child whenever they're doing good. So, that again, this one goes back to that praise, they're probably getting some form of attention for that negative behavior, whether it's coming from you or coming from their twin, just egging them on. So how can you really overly praise both of them as much as possible? So, oh, Tommy's doing a good job eating his carrots. I'm so proud of him. Or Bobby just cleaned up his blocks without being asked. Good job. Um, Another strategy that you can use in addition to behavior charts is reward jars. So each of the kiddos could have their own little reward cup, and every time you catch them being good, you drop a marble in the cup. Whoever gets their 10 marbles first wins, gets a prize from the treasure chest or from the dollar store, whatever, or gets to pick the game that you're playing that day, or the show that you're watching later that night, or the book that you're reading before bed, whatever it might be. So kind of using that competitiveness and that copying behavior to your advantage, really dive in deep to those positives. The 2.5-year-old thinking timeout is funny. Yes, another very popular one. Those kiddos that are just kind of laughing in your face and not taking you seriously. I understand this one. Um, this is where I like to, as much as possible, lean into the other options. So those logical consequences and the quiet time, because at this point, that child's demonstrating to you, like, I am not taking it seriously. This doesn't mean anything to me. Um, and again, the other thing I want to challenge on this is, what behavior are you using? Are you using timeout for? So maybe you're using timeout too much and they're just like, this is a joke. This is ridiculous. Or maybe you're not using it the correct way. So maybe, you're not making them sit there for the full time, or you're not having them sit there until they're calm or ready to re-engage with you, those type of things. So I would probably want to, dig a little bit deeper with you on, what does the timeout actually look like? When are you using it? When could you rely on some other resources that you have in your toolbox? Go ahead, Joe.
I just put a note in the chat because you can have different expectations for different ages and stages. A 2.5-year-old is so young. I mean, they really, as I said it earlier in the intro, the children who we're talking about who are under age 5 have barely been on the planet. They've hardly existed. So they just don't have, they're just developing the brain power, the resources, social, emotional, everything. And we need to be their guide. We need to try to set up the routine and the environment for them to succeed. So sometimes some expectations are just too much. And we did an Ages and Stages series that we recorded with a pediatrician, like a pediatrician with decades of experience, who did the presentations just off the top of her head, because she knows young children so well. So she did one on a pediatrician's guide to your child's first year. She did one for toddlers. We had to actually, we got so many questions in the chat on that one that we had to record a part 2 with her, of me just asking her the questions and her answering them. So we have a part 1 and 2 on parenting a pediatrician's guide to parenting a toddler. And in there, she's a lot of just really great information and guidance. So those are things you can find at our website if you want to dig a little deeper. And then yeah, so I just wanted to note that real quick.
I see one in here about biting behavior. Biting is, a hard one, and it's not pleasant for anyone, right? So there's a few things that I like to talk about with biting. The first one is how we are responding. So oftentimes, a bite can be really shocking to our system, right? If we're the one being bit. And so our go-to response is like, oh my gosh. So immediately, my first thing is, if they're biting you, turning down your reaction and your response, because they're getting huge response, huge feedback from you. Biting peers, we always want to, separate and redirect, but then also, tend to the victim, letting them taking care of their needs, making sure that they're okay, and bring some awareness to that piece, how that child was hurt. And then again, this is another one. I always like to dig a little bit deeper. Are there other things we could be doing with the kiddo to kind of increase some of a lot of kids are seeking just a little bit more input with their oral motor skills. And so, are there other opportunities throughout their day that we could be kind of feeding that need, right? Can we have some crunchy snacks? Can we have a chewy to really grit our teeth on and chew? Can we have electric toothbrush to kind of wake up that mouth? So again, these are kiddos that I do like to dive a little bit deeper. What's happening before and after the bite? What's happening throughout their day? Are they having other seeking behaviors, things like that? But definitely, turning down your response to a bite is key for sure. Dealing with a 4-year-old who's copying and practicing bad stuff, absolutely. Similar answer as the twins. Create anything positive that you can get out of that child. I see you say never nothing positive. Anything positive you can pull from that child, I want you to lean hard into and celebrate. So literally, if we have to start at square one with a kiddo, we're going to start at square one. I had a mom I was working with who he just would not separate from her for for anything. And so we literally started at 30 seconds of mom leaving the room, going to, just step outside the door and then returning just to show mommy comes back. And then we increased it to a minute. So don't ever feel like there's nothing that you can start from. There's always something that we can pick apart and start and celebrate and praise and build from there. Go ahead, Joan.
Well, this is another one where, you should never hesitate to ask for help from someone like Amber, from the Bright Beginnings program, or Help Me Grow, or your pediatrician. If you're really struggling, there's help out there, right, Amber? And I have to tell you, I have been the first to always get help. I had a family that luckily modeled that for me, because I did have an older brother who was ill from a young age, and turned out he was mentally ill. And so as a parent myself, I just always sought out help at the first instance of my son needing that, or me needing it. And I'm a professional. I have a master's in early childhood education. I taught for years. I needed help. I could not always, you know, provide the help my son needed. So don't hesitate to ask for help, and pat yourself on the back when you do. You're not alone. And I also meant to say one more thing, and Amber, I don't know how much you talk about this, but I've learned from one of my colleagues recently how much we do need to be aware of the fact that I don't know how many of you live in older homes, but lead poisoning is an issue and has an impact on brain development and behavior. And so there are children who may look like they may be on the autism spectrum, but they actually it may be because of lead poisoning. So I recommend people get their children tested for lead. If you live in the areas, where homes are I think, is it pre 1980s, Amber?
Yeah, and actually,
Yeah.
Cuyahoga County is really high risk kind of across, there are those neighborhoods that are higher risk, but really Cuyahoga County across the board, I recommend. Even if you're like, oh, I live in a freshly painted home, just have it tested and checked out.
Yeah. I mean, there's a large percentage of children in the county who have experienced lead poisoning, and you need to abate it. You need to address it. There's things that can be done to help recover. No amount of lead is safe for a child, but it could be indicative of other issues. So please ask for help when you need it, and keep that.
Am I still good, Joan? You cut out for a minute for me.
Yes, you're good. So there's another, do you see the next
Okay.
question down? Sorry, you have to scroll down a bit. And then we just have a
About being
couple more
overly
minutes.
clingy.
Yeah.
How can you deal with your child being overly clingy? Yeah, what I was talking about before about that separation piece and starting to have limits and boundaries. And so something as simple as like putting the child down to play with their toy, right? So instead of, when you're carrying them around the house and they're all over you, just kind of naturally trains. I had a dad I was talking about, he was saying, he's all over me, sitting on my lap at church, and I need some space. Hey, let's sit next to dad and we hold dad's hand while we're sitting in church. So kind of starting to model what's appropriate, where that you'd like them maybe not climbing all over you on your lap, but sitting next to you in the movie. Or you can share a blanket with mommy, but mommy's body. And so just kind of those natural places where you can really is great. And then in so, like I said, we started 30 seconds, he's gonna play with his train, she's gonna get him set up in the activity. All right, mom's gonna run out real quick. And then increasing that time as you go along. And so it can be really valuable just to kind of move that routine in for the Joan, I think that's the last
Amber.
one I
Yeah, I think so. And I just want to reiterate, well, I want to thank you, Amber, so much for taking the time. I want to thank everyone for attending. You can get help at Bright Beginnings. We do have a survey link. It really helps us. We are able to do a lot of these programs because we have funding to just support our organization to do the work. So the surveys help us also in planning for the future. But if you really feel like you have some issues that are really going to be hard to tackle, I recommend, again, seeking help from Bright Beginnings, from your pediatrician. And we do have more recordings. And Amber, someone asked if you would share the slides from the presentation. Is that something you would be willing to do and we could then send out
yeah,
to
and
registrants?
email, and then I'm gonna put again in the chat. I think it went to everyone.
Yes, I
The
see it.
website. So if you again, if you're or if you tonight that you want to Triple P is here to support you if you're a caregiver in Cuyahoga County with a child ages 0. That website takes you right to our services. There's a way to refer yourself as a family on that web discussion groups that come up. And so we do an extension of Disobedience, and we do some other ones that are currently on that site for you.
Yeah, there's more programs that they offer. And then also there's a Facebook group that people can join. Is that right, Amber? Is that or
Yeah, so Cuyahoga Parents Connect is the Facebook group, and it has a lot of great resources. Type that into your search bar on Facebook. Join. There's a couple like rules we ask you to agree to. Really great way to talk about us and kind of know what's going on in the community as well.
all right, great. And you're just starting to fade in and out every once in a while, Amber. So like the timing was good. The tech cooperated like through the majority. And again,
Library did not, but we made it.
yeah, you got it. I want to thank you again. Thanks everyone. Pat yourselves on the back for attending and being lifelong learners. And you can even have a conversation with your child about what you learned tonight a little, or what you're going to work on almost, or like that you're learning more. And I got some new ideas of how to support your development. And remember, they're little, and there's these developmental stages they go through. So things are going to change. They change fast. And we wish you all the best. We really want you to find some joy in your journey as a parent. I know it's challenging and there are not enough supports for families with young children in our society. And so we hope that at least you're enjoying Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and that by providing these programs, we're trying to make it the world a little bit of a better place for all of you and for your children and families, and only want the best for all of you. So we wish you well, and we hope you'll join us for some future programs. And Amber, thanks again.